Trap Media USA. Shout out to everybody that's tuned in, man. We appreciate y'all. It's a beautiful day of boxing. Welcome to the second episode of Wake and Bake Boxing and the Culture. If you can, hit that thumbs up for me. Let me know your predictions in the comments and let me know what you think both of these fighters need to do. I think today is an underrated day. As big as it is, as hype as people are, I think it's underrated because I think this is the biggest fight of our generation. Not Spence Crawford, not Triple G Canelo, and not Wilder Fury. None of the trilogy or nothing like that. I think when it's all over with, our generation will be defined by this fight. And I say that because with the Canelo Triple G, most of our community wasn't as like we wanted to see the fight, but it's not like we were as invested. These aren't two Americans. Canelo was big, and we like Canelo. A lot of the community didn't really like Triple G. Then Canelo had the controversy with the test and all that. I mean, it was cool. Don't get me wrong, it was cool, but we had already seen like the Floyd and all that. So a lot of us, I don't know. It just I feel like as the black culture, we are the culture, and what we are really into and what comes from our soil, it's a little bit different. When you put Jay-Z on that stage, when you put LeBron James on that court, it's a little bit different. And I feel this is just you're getting two black American fighters, small town, got it out the mud, guys. Nothing was really given. These guys had to fight their way up. The storyline, knowing each other from kids, happened to be one of the few guys that Terence Crawford actually hung out with, went to the mall with. One strongly rooted and raised by their mother, the other strongly rooted and raised by his father, but both met and meet on a similar highway. One very angry, one very ferocious, and one more laid back, more friendly. But when you throw them in a four square with ropes, both of them turn into a pit bull. Outside of the ring, both of these guys take care of their body. They're constantly in the gym. They're constantly sparring. They're constantly working out. Both of these guys are family, man. These guys aren't partaking in the extracurricular activities to get a lot of these boxers in trouble. They aren't blowing up in weight. One of these guys very social, and one of these guys very quiet. So it's like you have opposite spectrums in some part, but you have highways in which these guys meet. One viewed as super talented and gets the job done from his talent, and one viewed as I believe he's super talented, but the world view him as just more so will. So you have will versus skill. You have the product of a father versus the product of a mother. You have extro versus intro. You have bully versus the good guy. Like it's so much into this fight, and I don't think people really understand. Shawn Porter didn't go get outskilled by Earl Spence. A lot of times people talk about it as if he did, like he just was outskilled for 12 rounds. The skill level was on par, and if I say who showed the better skill, I would have to say Shawn Porter. Of course, I thought Porter won the fight. Spence got the knockdown, but just getting a knockdown to me. Derevchenko was knocked down in Triple G fight, but Derevchenko still clearly to most of us won that fight. So that's not just going to be a reason I'm gonna give you a fight. But I do, for all of those reasons stated, I do respect both of these guys, even though I might talk harsh against Terence Crawford, and that's more so just any fighter. We need to have a standard before we start giving out roses. I just felt like it's just a little bit too early. And one guy, he can do it all. Everything that everyone is asking from these fighters, he's the one years and years from now that we're going to be talking about that. Man, that Shawn Porter guy, he fought everybody. And usually most guys can't do this because once they get in a big fight and they lose, it's usually in such devastating fashion that not many want to see them in that big fight against the big guys again. So most guys can't stay at the top level and move around and fight the other big fighters because they have laid an egg against the other top fighters. But Shawn Porter has found a way to get in classics with these other top fighters, and even in debatable losses, find his way to still stay at the top and garner these top fights. But he hasn't sat on. He could have sat comfortable after the Spence fight, and with everything against him and most people picking against him, he could have sat on his hands and said, "Hey man, I got my respect after that fight." He could have really fought for the IBO against Formella, took that belt, and just went into retirement as a three-time champion. He could have took a route like that. But Porter was so dedicated, he just wanted to get back. He got his respect after the Spence fight. A lot of people that didn't think he was that guy, that thought he would go in, get stopped, get outclassed. The Spence just was on a whole different level. He didn't sit on his hands and, oh man, I'm just happy with this. So that's why I don't understand in this fight where it's like, oh man, Shawn Porter don't care about if he didn't care about boxing, bro, he could have took his flowers just from having the classic with Spence and walked away, or fought for Mella for the IBO and walked away as a three-time champion into commentary. Whatever you hear, and I'm hearing a lot of some big channels that I respect, like Shawn Porter no, Shawn Porter does care about commentary, but it'll be different if he was doing something like his podcast and his commentary was even on something like basketball. Then you can be like, man, yeah, Shawn Porter ain't no, but he's still within the boxing realm. So just like a scientist, if they're doing commentary, say at a Harvard or something like that, and they're just sitting back watching the teacher teach, listening to the ideas of the new students, and they're just constantly still entrenched in the science. We're not going to say, hey man, this scientist isn't ready for a big science debate or something like that, or to put together a big experiment, a science experiment versus another scientist. No, because they're still entrenched in their field of work. He's downloading different information just by being there, just by commenting on the fights. A lot of these fighters don't watch fights, and you can tell because they're not elevating their game. They're not evolving. Shawn Porter has grown a lot from the first time he may have stepped on your radar. Really go back and look how composed that he has gotten. That Formella fight was a beautiful fight. The Spence fight, a beautiful fight. Even with you not giving respect against the Ugas fight, most would say that Ugas, even going in, I told, a friend of mine, he didn't know Ugas. And that's what the problem. A lot of you guys don't know boxing outside of big names that the big channels give you. And Ugas, because he had taken losses and stuff like that, you're saying Porter lost because he had a close fight with a fighter who was already a top fighter, but going in, you didn't view him as that. You just thought he was somebody that Shawn Porter was gonna go in and run through. Me, as a guy who respected Shawn Porter, I talked to a friend of mine. He like, no, I don't want to see. I'm like, no, bro, this gonna be a close fight. That guy Ugas can fight, and I think that's a big problem in boxing. Shawn went out there and had a close fight. I had it separated rated by a round, and Ugas is my guy. Shawn Porter is my guy. I respect both of these guys to the highest level, but I had Shawn edging that fight out. He just was a little bit, and he did it with a different style outside of normal. How many people can go at the highest level, can switch up to something that you really haven't seen and come out successful. It's no real favor from the judge. Like the Shawn Porter or Ugas, especially at that time, it's not really a benefit either. Like either way, it was what it was. It's not like he was bringing all of this money into the sport. It was what it was. At least Ugas had a country. He got Cuba. So it's not like even Shawn Porter has locked up a region to where you can be like, man, financially, that just makes sense to give Shawn Porter that fight. They called it fair. These aren't Canelo or Spence or any of these guys that's generating a lot financially for boxing, especially at that time. So to really be calling a debatable robbery, it's crazy. It was a close fight. If it was a draw, a lot of people wouldn't have been mad. But for me, it was separated by 1 round. Um, the Kell Brook fight, we know that was excessive holding, but a lot of people still had Shawn Porter winning the fight with the holding. I thought it was a very close fight. I thought the refs, like, if they had the ref from the Gallimore Leon Lawson fight, Brook would have got penalized. Even in the Spence fight, there was never a point or a warning really for the low blows that Spence was throwing, and people just like to throw that out the window. Oh, that don't matter. But if Shawn was hitting Spence, you wouldn't have been able to hear the end of it. Oh man, he's such a dirty. That's all people would have been saying, how dirty Shawn Porter was. But it just comes from the hate and lack of respect for Shawn Porter represents like the 9 to 5 image to most people, and people want the street guy or semi-street guy or the guy that hangs around the street guy, the cool crowds, that dope boy image. And Shawn Porter doesn't give you that. So that's where a lot of the hate and disrespect, because he does his own thing. He's not wearing the big designer stuff and the chains and the glasses. He's not doing any of that. The watches, he's carrying it in a suit, tie, dress shoes. He's out there talking like he's doing everything in a 9 to 5 square tight fashion. So a lot of people just have hate for them, for Shawn Porter, for that, because they've been groomed to identify themselves only with one aspect of the community. So it's sad, it's unfortunate, and that's why he doesn't get his proper respect. This guy is already a Hall of Famer. You have a debatable with Earl Spence, who was pound for pound when he fought him. You have a debater with Keith Thurman, who was the first unified in pound for pound in this generation. When you fought him, you have what some see as a debatable with Kell Brook. Now I had Kell Brook, but some see as that. So I had him beating Thurman, I had him beating Spence, and you beat Ugas, Danny Garcia, who most people thought was going to knock out Shawn Porter, especially these Philly guys who are picking against all of the Philly guys in that Boots gym. They all picking against Shawn Porter this fight, but they was picking Danny too. But they act like they didn't do that. They act like that never happened. Danny wasn't they act like Danny wasn't the odd favorite. Now Danny wasn't a big fight for anybody. So he had the big power, and still, even though Bud is a technical knockout artist, Danny is just if I catch you might go to bed for the most part. Danny is a real one punch put you to bed artist. And he didn't get Shawn out of there. Keith Thurman landed big shots. He didn't get Shawn out of there. It's like, at what point do we respect a fighter's chin? At what point do we respect a fighter's resume? At what point do we respect a fighter's heart? Even the Paulie fight. Most people would say Paulie is better than Shawn Porter as far as skill. He's the better boxer. He does things the right way. But Shawn Porter still found the way to go in there and get the job done in an exciting fashion. Devin Alexander, Shawn Porter finds it. These are a big fight. If you weren't tuned in, just say that. But that doesn't mean these weren't big fights. And that doesn't mean, from your perspective and how you see boxing, how you talking right now, I know that you would say that these guys were more skilled than Shawn Porter. But, man, just get his guys flowers. Win, lose, draw. Give Shawn Porter his Hall of Fame flowers, because I think more than any other fighter in boxing, maybe outside of Canelo, best resume. He gave it all to our generation. Never cheated the sport. What turns me off with Bud is Bud tries to be deceptive with what has happened. He'll try to sell like it's like it would be equivalent if Spence were trying to sell you Ocampo's undefeated record. Like, man, this guy was an undefeated fighter, blah blah blah, and was trying to stand on that win and compare it to fighting guys like Shawn Porter, Danny Garcia, and Kell Brook and the other top fighters. So it would have been equivalent if you flipped the role and Terence was fighting these guys and Spence was trying to stand on fighting undefeated Ocampo just because he was undefeated and trying to say, oh, just because you guys didn't like. So yeah, man, I think it's unfortunate, but if you want this sport to go forward, it starts with supporting guys like Shawn Porter, because when people see Porter still get respect with the 3 losses on his resume and still gets held high, especially if he was on a pound for pound, you would see more guys willing to take a risk. You would get a Charlo Andrade because they would still see like, man, I can go out here, lose to a top guy. It's not like I'm going out here and lose to a Ruiz, who a lot of people wasn't. You know what I mean? This is a known top fighter, and I can still maintain my spot on its pound for pound like Lomachenko did. So we need that same type of respect for the elite black fighters that's going through murder's row, like Shawn Porter has, and he's not just going through it; he's giving you classic fights while doing so. So when we get to these predictions, if you're still listening, I appreciate you again. Hit that thumbs up, hit that like button. Trap Media USA, Wake and Bake, and the culture in the morning. I think the key for Shawn Porter is foot placement. But if you look at the Kell Brook fight, I think the key is just I'm one of those guys who is not a real southpaw, but I fight southpaw. So people are thrown off when they get hit, and there's so much power in the lead in the hand that's in the front, the right hand. Because typically even if it's a semi-strong jab, it's different than your power hand jabbing them or your power hand, especially that check hook, because you're so, it's like the shots you don't see coming. Even though you can see this shot coming, it's so much power in it that it's like a shock, like, oh, because you weren't expecting. Because a typical southpaw, Earl's check that's in the front is not going to be to the same level as a southpaw like a Bud, because this is really his power hand just in the front. So if I'm talking to Shawn, I'm telling them, don't get caught by surprise with that. Brook made the mistake of letting his lead foot get in the inside, because if you look at Bud, he's constantly just trying to get that right foot on the outside of Kell Brook's left foot and throw that check hook over whatever Kell Brook's throwing, or if he just has his guard up. Remember, Bud has very long reach. So if he just can get in the right angle and get that shot off, most likely you're going to bed. This is a very powerful, probably one of the most underrated, even more so than bringing the right if he was fighting orthodox, because I can pick up so much. You'll be surprised how much power I can pick up just from throwing that check, even more so than if I'm fighting orthodox and the right is in the back. I feel like I have more power from a southpaw stance just throwing that check hook. So if I'm Kenny and Shawn, if it's some way that you listen to this, do not let your left foot get on the inside of his right foot. Do not, you stay on the outside of that. You paw at it, keep your hand on his, kind of like Teofimo kept his hand on Lomachenko. Look, keep your hand on that. Take Bill Belichick, take that right hand away. And in the Amir Khan fight, even though he was fighting orthodox, his his I would still stay on top of that right hand. I don't go outside to where it's a perfect, like if you twist your body, it's a perfect, like if you spin off, it's still a perfect right hook. So I would stay on top of that right hand to where you're not getting nothing powerful and no torque behind that right, that I'm right on top of it. So it's not really much you can do. Anything that's coming is gonna come from a left hook, left jab, whatever is coming from the left. Whatever the left, I think Shawn has felt and Shawn will be able to absorb. But just stay away from that right hand. Take the right hand from Terence Crawford, and I think you'll see a different Terence Crawford. it's not saying that the left isn't any power or anything like that, but I just feel like his right is devastating. So whether he's orthodox or whether he's southpaw, I'm staying on top of that right hand. If he's orthodox, I'm moving towards and the outside of the right hand, still trying to stay on top of it. And if he's southpaw, I'm moving on the outside of it, pawing, not letting my foot get caught inside. And just take your time, Shawn. Be patient and don't outthink yourself. Just Bill Belichick. If the fight is slow, cool. If people start booing, cool, because they expected a certain type of fight. That's all good. But just do not get caught like Kell Brook with your foot on the inside of his right, because it can be devastating for anybody, especially when you don't expect that type of power to come from that lead right hand. So that's really my key. If I'm Terrence, it's the opposite. I'm the same thing with from either stance. I know he wants to make a statement. He's not just fighting Shawn Porter. In his mind, he's fighting Earl Spence, just like against Amir Khan. He wasn't just fighting Amir Khan. He was fighting Canelo Alvarez, Kell Brook. He wasn't just fighting Kell Brook. He was fighting Earl Spence. So he wants to make the big statement against one of the biggest guys in the sport, against Hall of Fame, Showtime, Shawn Porter, against Mr. Dun Dun and all, Dun Dun and all. He wants to make a statement against Showtime, Shawn Porter. And Shawn, you have everything you need for that statement not to be made. As long as you can avoid those big shots, I'm 100% sure that you can outbox Terence Crawford. I'm 100% sure that you can outdog Terence Crawford. And if you're countering over when he's southpaw and you're countering over his right, I think you can get inside off a counter and get him in some trouble. So let's get him on those ropes. You need that Maidana mentality. No friends, no Caleb Planton in there. Oh, how do you think I'm doing? I'm pretty good. We don't need none of that. I don't want no smiling. I really don't want you to touch his gloves at the beginning of the fight. Make the ref have to force you to be friendly. Make everything personal. Get Man, when you in them, be in them. When you close, let your hands go. Don't wait and hold for the referee to come break y'all up. Even when the referee come and still throw something at him, make him get mad and feel like, oh, you being dirt. Make him get up. Make it a fight. We need a real fight, guy. It need to feel like how when Geechee Gotti battle people, and he's disrespecting guys that he was just hanging out with. Geechee don't get in there and talk to him like somebody he cool with. You think they really beefing, and it need to be that same type of feel. It needs to be that same type of energy. That's what the fans need. That's what will make this fight exactly what I think it will be, the fight of this generation. We need something very personal. We need Madonna type energy with Floyd. When he get him on the ropes, you pushing your head into him, pushing them back. You need people to say, "Damn, what the hell wrong with Shawn Porter?" Like you need people really like this nigga done lost his mind. Like on that type shit. Like not only are you controlling and staying outside and doing the right things, taking that right hand away, but when it's time for that real contact, don't show him no love. Don't show him no love. I'm a knock him out. Who you got? I got Showtime Shawn Porter. I'm gonna knock him out. Appreciate you for coming in. Hit that thumbs up. Who you got? I got Showtime Shawn Porter. I think Shawn just has everything that it takes. He's been at this level for a long time. He's not getting his proper respect, but I think he's comfortable in that. He knows who he is as a fighter. And I think it's just his time for everything to finally come together. The promotion from ESPN has been great. I think a lot of them even get it. And I think Terence Crawford knows. If you've seen him, it's a different Terence Crawford than at most weigh-ins. It's a different Terence Crawford than at most press conferences. But I got Shawn Porter. I wouldn't be surprised at a draw because it's on Top Rank and people are so invested in that Earl Spence and Terence Crawford fight. Uh, and I wouldn't be surprised at Shawn Porter getting them in trouble if you seen the Molina fight where Molina caught Crawford on the ropes. And with most guys, when they get Crawford on the ropes or in a compromising position, he just turns them. I think Shawn Porter is physically strong enough. If you've seen them both at the weigh-in, they both look in spectacular shape. And I think he just won't be able to grab Shine and turn them and get off. I think Shine is going to really let his hands go on those ropes, unlike Molina when he caught him. And that is a situation where I could see a TKO. But I expect a great fight overall. But I definitely I'm rocking with Showtime Sean Porter. Shout out to everybody that tuned in. Expect a great fight tonight. Please don't stream this fight, man. Buy this pay-per-view. All of you Bud fans, all of you people picking Bud by knockout, all of you people that are 100% 10 toes behind Bud against Earl Spence and everybody else, you really think he's pound for pound, he's number one. Don't just hate on Canelo because he gets all that support. This is your opportunity to put Bud in that position that you feel that he should be in. Bud feel he should be at the same level as Canelo, and a lot of his fans and supporters do as well. Well, this is your night to put him not only by a performance that you think he's going to have, but financially making him one of the top breadwinners in the sport. So if you're a real Bud fan, make sure you buy this fight. If you're a Sean Porter fan, make sure you buy this fight. And if you're a fan of boxing, you have to buy this fight because to me, this is the fight of the generation. Shout out I am knock him out. Man, this is one right that's like 50-50. I lean towards Crawford because of power. And that's understandable. I think like I was saying earlier, Crawford has power, but it's not the Danny Garcia one punch knockout power. It's the unexpected because you don't expect a southpaw to be throwing so much power from the check hook in the front. So I can understand what you're saying, and then Bud just gets so ferocious once he sees you hurt. One thing I will give Sean Porter that upon being hurt by Broner, upon being hurt by Spence, it's not like he just goes away. So Crawford, I would advise him if I'm on his team, be careful if you think you do hurt Sean Porter because you're gonna go in there thinking that it's Amir Khan or it's Kell Brook. It's somebody that wants to lay down. And Sean Porter is not going to lay down. Even if you put him down, one thing we got to give guys the benefit of the doubt based on facts and history that once he gets hits and get dropped, he jumps up even more aggressive. So keep that in mind, even as a Bud Crawford fan. And man, just show Sean Porter some respect, man. He's done it all for our generation. It's nothing more than we can ask from a fighter. He need to come out to that shorty low. Done it all. Done it all. Done it all. That I'm telling you, that would set the whole vibe. It'll shock people too, because they wouldn't expect Sean to come out to something like this. But man, I'm happy. I'm proud. Boxing was dead to me earlier in the year, but fights like this, fights like Canelo Plant, Devin Haney, Jojo Diaz. Um, is it a fight I'm mixing? AJ and Usyk. We've gotten a lot of great fights, but I think this is the one that will set the bar for our generation, even more so than a Spence Crawford. I know a lot of people don't see it because they think, as far as skill, that Spence Crawford is more on the same level. But just really keep in mind and really go back and watch that fight. And let me know, do you think Earl Spence showed that he was just head and shoulder skill above Sean Porter? And I don't think, if you're being fair, that you can really go into that fight and say that. If anything, he showed he was the more dirty fighter than Sean Porter. But it's respect to Earl Spence too. But I think inside and outside of the ring, these are the two guys that sets themselves apart from anybody else. And man, boxing, we winning right now. It's a beautiful time to be a boxing fan. Tell a friend to tell a friend. Appreciate I am knockout for coming through. Shout out to Ghost. Shout out Southern T Boxing. Shout out Corey Lee Boxing. Shout out Mike. He used to be on the Boxing Boys. Mike, I was on his show talking a little bit about this fight. Shout out my guy Jalik the Leader. Make sure y'all go check out all of these people channels. Shout out Artman Boxing. I was on his channel talking about the fight. I just like to give flowers to everybody that lends their platform to me, and just different interactions. So years and years from now, these are the pyramids. You can see who was interacting with who, and a lot of times you don't see channels that aren't like in the same group really like praising or just giving that respect or even referencing channels outside of themselves. But I always want to be one of those that pays homage because then you know what different trains of thought, what different trees, where, because we all get little bits and pieces from everybody. Shout out Blue Blood. He's always show respect, and I always say Corey Lee Boxing back with another banger. He was the one that early on when I was coming up in the YouTube boxing. He was the first bigger channel that I was watching that commented and just let me know he was tuned in. So I always pay respect to him for that. And then Sheldon T for letting me come on co-host and be a part of big interviews like Albert Bell. You know, it's always appreciated on my end. Again, hit that thumbs up if you can, comment if you can. I hope that you got some good THC, some good CBD. You start your morning out the right way. In the future, we'll have some good sponsors and be putting some names on it. We're going to expand outside of boxing, but it's just a great day to be a boxing fan. Trap Media USA. Make sure you go support this pay per view on ESPN Plus app and go check out the weigh in. Go check out the little series leading up to it. Just stay in a good mood, a good vibe today. Get family over. This is an occasion for somebody whose friends or family might not be in the boxing. This is that gateway drug for them into the sport. Trap Media USA, America, we got one. I'm out.